One of the most surprising lessons in life is this: not everyone deserves your unlimited friendliness. We grow up being told, be nice, be friendly, be kind to everyone. And yes, kindness is essential. But here's the truth: if you are too friendly, too available, too accommodating, you will not always be loved more, you will often be respected less. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that when you go out of your way to please everyone, the very people you bend over backwards for start treating your kindness as if it's their right? Instead of gratitude, you get expectations. Instead of appreciation, you get demands. That is the hidden trap of being too friendly. And this is why you must stay with me till the end of this message. Because understanding this shift can completely transform the way people value you. Excessive friendliness is like giving someone free access to your heart without a lock or key. It feels good at first, but soon you realize that not everyone who enters your life has pure intentions. Some people come not to appreciate, but to take advantage. And once they know that you'll always say yes, that you'll always smile, no matter how they treat you, they stop respecting the very kindness that once drew them close. That is why boundaries are not walls, they are doors. You decide who enters, how far they come, and how much of yourself you share. When you are too friendly, you give away the power of those doors. You allow others to control the flow of your emotions, your time, and even your peace. But when you learn to balance friendliness with firmness, you gain respect without losing warmth. The irony of life is that when you stop being too friendly, when you stop saying yes to everything, when you begin to value your own time, suddenly people begin to value you too. They start realizing that your smile is precious, your attention is meaningful, and your kindness is not to be taken for granted. So, let's not misunderstand, being friendly is a virtue. But being too friendly is a weakness. True friendships, true love, true respect, they are born in balance, not in blind generosity. Remember, the goal is not to be less kind, but to be wisely kind. Because when you protect your boundaries, you don't push people away, you attract the right ones closer. Excessive friendliness often begins with the best of intentions. You want to be kind, you want to be approachable, you want people to feel comfortable around you. And at the surface, there's nothing wrong with that. It reflects a warm heart and a gentle nature. But here's the reality. When friendliness is given in excess, without boundaries, it often creates the opposite of what you hope for. Instead of receiving appreciation, you find yourself being exploited. Instead of being valued, you are taken for granted. This is the hidden danger of being overly accommodating, and it's one of the subtle reasons why people who are too nice often find themselves emotionally exhausted and unappreciated. Imagine a person who says yes to everything. A colleague asks them to stay late to finish extra work, even though it isn't their responsibility. A friend calls in the middle of the night, not once in an emergency, but repeatedly, just to talk about their problems while ignoring that the other person is tired. A neighbor constantly borrows things, but never returns them on time. What happens in each of these cases? The excessively friendly person finds themselves trapped, unable to say no because they've built an image of being endlessly available. And once people realize that, they stop respecting the limits that should naturally exist. Kindness, without wisdom, becomes a tool others can misuse. It's important to understand that exploitation doesn't always come in the form of obvious manipulation. It often happens quietly. At first, someone might genuinely be grateful for your friendliness. But as time goes on, your yes becomes expected. Your generosity stops being seen as a gift and starts being treated as an obligation. The more you give, the less value is placed on what you offer. And then one day, you wake up and realize that people no longer ask for your help with gratitude. They demand it as if it's their right. That's when you see how being excessively friendly can turn into being unintentionally exploited. Another way this unfolds is in relationships. Think of the friend who never says no to an invitation, even when they're tired, busy, or simply in need of rest. They want to maintain peace, they want to avoid conflict, and they fear that saying no might disappoint someone. But instead of being loved more for their availability, they are often valued less. Because when you're always available, people stop treasuring your time. Scarcity creates value, and when your presence becomes overly abundant, without boundaries, people unconsciously start treating you as replaceable. It's painful, but it's the truth. The same applies in professional life. If you're the one who always covers for others, who always takes on extra tasks, who always says yes even when the workload is unfair, you might think your friendliness will earn respect. But often it earns the opposite. Your colleagues might start to see you as the one who can always be dumped on. Your boss might start expecting you to do more without acknowledgement. And instead of rising in respect, you end up being stuck in a cycle where your over-friendliness becomes the very reason others don't recognize your true worth. The challenge is not to stop being friendly, but to be wisely friendly. Because when you give without measure, when you're endlessly available, you unintentionally send a message. My time, my energy, my boundaries are not valuable. And people, consciously or unconsciously, respond to that message. They begin to reflect back the worth you've shown for yourself. If you treat yourself as though your time and effort are limitless, others will believe the same and use it without hesitation. The world has a way of testing the limits we set. If you give people endless space, they will often take it all. If you never say no, people will keep asking until you break. And if you believe that being too friendly will win you love, you may find that it only wins you exhaustion. True love, true respect, true connection, they are not built on endless yeses, but on the balance between kindness and strength. When you realize this, you begin to understand that excessive friendliness is not kindness at all. It's a disguised form of neglecting yourself. And no one benefits from that in the long run. Not you and not the people you are trying to please. Because when you burn out, when you feel resentful, when you no longer have the energy to genuinely give, the very relationships you were trying to protect through friendliness start to weaken. The irony is that by trying too hard to be friendly, you can end up pushing away the very closeness you hope to build. That is why it is said, too much sweetness spoils the appetite. Too much availability cheapens presence. Too much friendliness opens the door not to deeper respect, but to subtle exploitation. And if you want to be valued, if you want to be respected, you must learn that being friendly is good, but being excessively friendly is harmful to yourself and to your relationships. Boundaries protect respect, and this is one of the most misunderstood truths in human interaction. People often think that if they set boundaries, they will come across as rude, selfish, or unkind. But in reality, boundaries are not walls that shut people out. They are fences that define where respect begins. Without them, relationships become unbalanced, and instead of mutual honor, what grows is entitlement. Boundaries are the invisible lines that teach people how to treat you, and without them, even your goodness will be taken for granted. When you look around, you'll notice something interesting. Those who are always saying yes, Those who never express limits are often the ones who feel the most drained and the most disrespected. It's not because they lack love in their hearts, it's because they've not drawn a line that communicates self-respect. People don't automatically know how to treat you. They learn from what you allow. If you allow constant interruptions, people will stop valuing your time. If you allow unfair requests, people will continue making them. If you never say no, people will stop appreciating your yes. This is why boundaries are essential, not just for your peace of mind, but for the respect you deserve. Think about how nature itself teaches us this lesson. The ocean is vast, powerful, and beautiful. But it has a shore, a boundary, beyond which it cannot flow. And it is precisely because the ocean respects its boundary that we can appreciate its beauty and its strength. Imagine if the ocean simply poured into the land endlessly, without limits. It would no longer inspire admiration, it would cause destruction. In the same way, when you learn to honor your own boundaries, you don't become less friendly, you become more valuable. People begin to see your time as precious, your kindness as meaningful, and your presence as a privilege, not an entitlement. The truth is, many people confuse boundaries with hostility. They think saying no means rejecting someone. But in reality, saying no often means saying yes to something deeper: your health, your peace, your values, your priorities. Boundaries are not about pushing others away. They are about keeping yourself whole so that when you do give, your giving comes from strength, not exhaustion. A person who never protects their boundaries will soon run out of genuine joy in giving. And when kindness is given from a place of resentment or fatigue, it loses its true essence. Consider the difference between someone who is always available versus someone who is available but with clarity. If you can call a person at any hour, demand their time, their energy, their attention without regard for their own life, eventually their presence loses its weight. But if that person is loving, kind, and supportive, yet clear about their boundaries, their yes carries power. When they show up for you, you know it's sincere, not out of guilt or obligation. Boundaries add value to every act of kindness because they protect the authenticity behind it. Boundaries also teach others how to mirror respect back to you. In friendships, if you make it clear that your time is valuable, your friends will start to adjust how they approach you. In relationships, if you calmly but firmly express what is acceptable and what is not, you train the other person to see your worth. And in work environments, if you create professional boundaries, people recognize your contribution more seriously. The paradox is that people respect you more when you don't let them walk all over you. They may resist at first, because entitlement never likes to lose its grip. But eventually they adjust, because respect is born not in unlimited giving, but in balanced living. One of the reasons boundaries are so powerful is because they align with self-respect. When you say, "I cannot take this call right now, I'll speak to you later," you're not insulting the other person. You're honoring your own time. When you say, "I cannot take on this extra work because I already have responsibilities," you're not rejecting your team. You're ensuring you give your best to what's already on your plate. And when you say, "I'm uncomfortable with this behavior," you're not being unkind. You're protecting your dignity. And people who see you honor yourself are far more likely to honor you too. The world doesn't always reward endless availability, but it always notices self-respect. Have you ever wondered why some people walk into a room and automatically command respect without even demanding it? It's not because they are unfriendly. It's because they carry themselves with boundaries. You can feel in their presence that while they are approachable, they are not to be taken lightly. Their friendliness doesn't come from fear of being disliked, it comes from security within themselves. That security creates respect. If you don't set boundaries, you allow the world to define your worth for you. And the world, more often than not, will define it far below what you deserve. But when you set boundaries, you are declaring, I respect myself enough to protect my peace, my time, and my values. And that declaration teaches others how to treat you. True respect is not built on unlimited friendliness. It is built on wise friendliness, grounded in self-awareness and self-respect. Boundaries don't weaken love, they purify it. They don't destroy relationships, they strengthen them. And they don't make you less approachable, they make you more admirable. True relationships thrive on balance, not over friendliness. Balance is the secret ingredient that keeps connections alive, meaningful, and lasting. When you tip too far on one side, when you try too hard to please, when you are excessively available, when you suppress your own needs just to maintain harmony, you create an imbalance that doesn't nurture the relationship but slowly drains it. Over-friendliness may look like love, but it often turns into dependency, entitlement, and a lack of authenticity. On the other hand, balance allows love, respect, and trust to flourish naturally without force. Think about the healthiest relationships you've seen in your life. They're not built on one person constantly giving and the other constantly taking. They're not built on one person bending, adjusting, and sacrificing endlessly while the other lives in comfort. Instead, the healthiest relationships are partnerships of mutual respect, where kindness flows both ways, where listening and speaking are shared, and where presence is not demanded but appreciated. When friendliness crosses the line into over-friendliness, it creates a lopsided dynamic. One person becomes the giver, the fixer, the pleaser, while the other unconsciously slides into the role of taker. That may last for a while, but over time, it erodes the dignity of both sides. Balance matters because it gives space for truth to exist. When you are too friendly, you hesitate to speak up when you're hurt. You fear that honesty might damage the relationship. So you hide your feelings, you swallow your disappointments, you let resentment quietly build. But a relationship where truth is sacrificed for the sake of friendliness is not a real relationship, it's a performance. It may look peaceful on the outside, but inside it's fragile because no connection can survive without authenticity. Balance means you can be kind and still be honest. It means you can love someone deeply and still express your boundaries. It means you don't have to pretend everything is fine just to keep the friendship or relationship intact. In fact, when you stop being over-friendly and start being balanced, your relationships often grow stronger. People begin to see the real you, not just the smiling version that always agrees. They realize you are someone who values truth, not just harmony. And while at first it may surprise them, because people who are used to your over-friendliness might resist when you change, they eventually come to respect you more. They see that your yes means something, that your kindness has depth, and that your friendship is not shallow but rooted in honesty. Balance also means allowing space for individuality. In a relationship where one person is overly friendly, there's often a loss of personal identity. You might start agreeing with things you don't believe in, doing things you don't enjoy, or pretending to feel things you don't truly feel just to avoid conflict. But true closeness doesn't require you to erase yourself. Real intimacy is built when both people can remain authentic while still choosing to walk together. When you maintain balance, You don't lose yourself in the relationship, you bring your whole self into it. And that's what makes it richer, stronger, and more fulfilling. Consider friendships where one person is always giving, always adjusting, always the first to reach out, to call, to plan. Over time, if that effort is not matched, the friendship begins to feel one-sided. The giver starts to feel unappreciated, and the taker may not even realize the imbalance they've fallen into. But when both sides contribute equally, when there's a balance of effort, energy, and care, the friendship becomes sustainable. It doesn't feel heavy for one and effortless for the other. Instead, it feels light because both are carrying it together. In romantic relationships, balance is even more crucial. Over-friendliness in love might look like constant sacrifice, endless yeses, and trying to please at all costs. But that doesn't build love, it builds dependence, and sometimes even resentment. Love that thrives is love that has balance, where one person's needs don't overshadow the other's, where both feel heard, where both feel respected, and where kindness doesn't come at the cost of truth. Balance allows love to breathe, to grow, to adapt. Without it, love suffocates under the weight of one-sided effort. Balance also protects the longevity of relationships. When you are too friendly, too available, and too giving, people may enjoy it in the short term, but over time, they stop valuing it. Familiarity without balance breeds contempt. But when your friendliness is measured, when it's sincere but not excessive, people learn to treasure it. They look forward to your presence, they value your kindness, and they respect your limits. That's what makes a relationship last, not constant availability, but meaningful availability. At its heart, balance is love with wisdom. It's kindness with strength. It's friendliness with authenticity. It doesn't mean being cold, and it doesn't mean being selfish. It means giving without losing yourself, listening without silencing your truth, and caring without being consumed. It means both sides walk together, not one dragging the other. And when this balance exists, relationships don't just survive, they thrive. Because people don't feel exploited, they feel respected. They don't feel drained, they feel nourished. They don't feel one-sided, they feel whole.